Hello and welcome back to Bookmark Chronicles. Today I'm going to talk about my young adult fantasy recommendations. So I have 3 trilogies, 2 duologies. All of these series are complete. So if you start them, you have the ability to finish them. You're not waiting for any more releases. The first one is Kingdom of Souls by Rena Barron. This is a trilogy that includes Kingdom of Souls, Master of Souls, and Reaper of Souls. I really love the first book in this series. It's quite a ride. In that first book, we're following Ara. She's the daughter of 2 very powerful witch doctors. However, she doesn't have any magic of her own. Circumstances lead to her being willing to risk it all in order to gain magic, and we follow her story from there. I genuinely feel like that is all you need to know going in. It's a really good time. I love that first book. Rest of the series might have fallen a little flat, but that first one I will always recommend. Next one should not be a surprise to anyone. It is my favorite young adult fantasy of all time, Bear by Jordan Fueco. This is duology, Bear and Redemptor. I really love this book. The world, the writing. This is the book that made me realize how much I love found family. In this one, we're following Tarsai, who has been raised in isolation. She doesn't really know her mother. She just knows that she's referred to as the lady, and she sees her occasionally. One day, the lady comes to her and tells her that she is being sent to the capital, where she is to befriend the crown prince and then kill him. I really love this book, and her latest release, The Man and the Crocodile, is sort of a spin-off of this series that is set in the same world. So if you've read the duology already and haven't read her new one, I highly recommend. Next is A Song of Wraiths and Ruin. Again, a duology that includes A Song of Wraiths and Ruin and A Psalm of Storms and Silence. In this one, we're following Karina and Malik. Both of them are trying to save one of their loved ones, but in order to do so, they need to get close enough to each other to kill each other. For Malik, he's trying to get his sister back, who was kidnapped by a demon, and for Karina, she is trying to resurrect her mother, but they both need something very specific in order to achieve their goal, and we watch their story from there. I really love this duology. I think I ended up liking the second book more than the first one just because it was more adventurous, there was a lot more going on, and this series came out a while ago, I believe either prior to or during the pandemic, but still it's one that I think about and would definitely reread. Then we have the Deathless series by Namina Forna. This includes the Gilded ones, the Merciless ones, and the Eternal ones. All the books in this series were 4.75 or 5 stars. I was shocked at how good it was. I feel like a lot of people read the first book and say that it's really good, even though it is very brutal, but then they never continue the series. And so I'm glad that I was able to finish the series earlier this year, and I loved all of them. In this, we're following Deka on the day of her ritual of purity, which is a yearly tradition where girls of a certain age have their blood tested. If your blood is red, you are considered pure. However, if your blood runs gold, which is what happens to Deka, your entire village will turn their back on you because you are considered a monster. While we're following Deka's story, someone comes to her and says, I can take you to a place full of girls that are just like you, and you can become a warrior for the emperor. And so that's what she does. I love this series. I wish that more people would read this series because it is so good. It is very brutal, probably one of the most brutal young adult fantasies that I have ever read, but it is absolutely worth it. I love all the characters, the things that you find out, the twists and turns, all of it is so good. And lastly, I have the Arc of the Scythe Trilogy, which includes Scythe, Thunderhead, and The Toll. This was again a 5-star read that... rude. This was again a 5-star read that I was surprised by. The second book in the series is my favorite because it's chaotic as hell, but in the best possible way. But in this world, disease has been eradicated, and so as a means of population control, there are Scythes who have to glean or kill people in order to keep the population at a manageable rate. So we're following 2 teenage apprentices, Citra and Rowan, as they learn how to become a Scythe, and this was a wild ride. It's a good one. I've never read anything else by Neil Shusterman, so if you're going to read one thing, you should definitely read this series. So those are all of my recommendations for today. I'm also building a list for middle grade and for adults, so hopefully I will complete those soon. I'm trying to wait till some things get finished to see how I feel about my final rating overall, but let me know if you have read any of these or if they are on your TBR. Otherwise, that's all I have for you today, and I'll see you in the next video.